I'm Alexandria Kenyon, spiritual mentor and your host of Conscious Connection, a podcast where we create space for humanness within spiritual development. Me and my When She Feels Like It co-host Kimber Kline are giving you a real behind-the-scenes look of what it is actually like to be on a spiritual development path. We will talk with coaches, healers, and other spiritual leaders who are making impact, as well as our clients who will share their real life experience as they practice owning their intuitive gifts. Stick around for unfiltered conversations that may or may not poke fun at New Age spirituality, giving you permission to show up imperfectly human. Welcome to Conscious Connection, the podcast. I am your host, Alexandria Kenyon, psychic medium, spiritual mentor, and human. Here with
Kimber Kline, also a psychic medium, plant alchemist, and integrative energetics Reiki master.
Ooh, hey girl.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Haven't seen you for a while.
It's been mere seconds since I've encountered you. Fun fact, Kimber and I live together, and she is upstairs. Yeah. Hey girl.
What's up?
So I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because there's a lot out there, programming, pictures, whatever it might be, around what it's actually like to be a psychic medium. I mean, we only have a few shows in the world that talk about like what the actual experience is like having extrasensory gifts. And there's no better person to talk about this with than you. You are beyond psychic, and living with you has taught me so much about myself and my own sensitivity. And I'm excited to share that with whoever's listening.
Thank you. I feel very much the same. Like a lot of my gifts have been coming online being in your space because of how confidently you own your space and own your gifts. And I'm really excited to talk about it too, and kind of like pull back some of the smoke and mirrors, because even with those TV shows, there's a lot of dramatics around what it is to be a psychic medium. So let's make it a little bit more real.
Yeah. Real is a good word. Yeah. Let's ground it. Let's start with like, what was it like for you as a kid? And were your gifts activated then, or how did that come into fruition for you?
Yeah, so my gifts were very active. Like for as long as I can really remember, I was able to like talk to and see things that I'd bring up and my family would kind of renounce as like imaginary friends, or just tell people I'm quirky when I would to go up to strangers and say weird things. But yeah, they were pretty active. And then I grew up in a very religious household. And so a lot of the messaging that I received around what I was experiencing was that it wasn't real, or that it wasn't acceptable. So a lot of my experience growing up was kind of telling myself what I was experiencing wasn't real or wasn't okay. So I went through a period of like shutting those gifts down so that I could navigate and be accepted into my family and the experience they were having with religion. And then the last like 5 years have really been focused on like peeling back those layers and allowing my gifts to come back online and calibrating my nervous system to experience those gifts in that capacity.
Yeah, I imagine having sensitivity as a child and growing up in a family with, religious affiliation would be really challenging because it goes, directly against, beliefs or like pictures or programs that they have. And yeah, what was that like to step into like your psychicness and really claim it? Was that difficult for you?
Yeah, it was really challenging, because the life I had created was around the previous narrative of being Christian, of being um, going unconscious.
So, side note for anyone listening, when an energy gets really, really big, or there's a certain pain in our system involving what we're talking about, our energetics, our body shuts down. We tend to go unconscious. It's kind of similar to if you've ever been in so much pain that you've passed out. It's kind of our body's emotional way of shutting down. So when we talk about things that are painful and we kind of like dip out or like forget or kind of black out in the process, that is the sensation of going unconscious. So if you ever hear us saying, oh, we're going unconscious, it's us processing unconscious energy and bringing like that pain into the consciousness. So it's kind of like the buffering of the
Mm-hmm.
radio before like it comes conscious. And it's like, if you ever see me like black out or like just don't say anything, it's just me processing unconscious energy.
Yeah, it's like we literally lose the train of thought, and it's like I was speaking about something and it's totally gone. But yeah, I do get to like go through some unconscious energy because this is the first time I've shared the story
Ooh.
publicly. Like it's just the first time I've really like shared my experience around it, and um, I it was really challenging because I felt like it was a decision like to turn my gifts back on and to go into that space where I was like claiming that I was psychic and claiming that I had these experiences with spirits and with energies. It was really challenging because I felt like I was doing it by myself in a lot of ways and kind of fighting against the narrative of the people around me, the people that I loved very deeply. And I had to decide like this is my truth regardless of what other people tell me, even if I do love them and even if they do love me.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that can
yeah.
be really challenging. Just to go up against your entire family's ancestral history, just one mere person. Just that one's,
NBD.
yeah, it's not a big deal. What I love about spirituality and what I love about this new dimension of self that I'm in is how much amusement is really quite available. So,
Mhm.
this podcast, there's going to be some jokes. It's going to be great. So, I just want to like let you guys know that they're not coming from a place of like judgment or anything like that, but we like to keep it light when we're talking about like some serious shit. We're talking about
It's serious.
religious programming. Like breaking free from religious programming.
Yeah.
um so yeah, like let's laugh about this for a second, because I like to always put things into perspective for me of like, okay, like I incarnated because I believe that like in my experience that I have a plan, and I had a plan to incarnate into the line that I incarnated into.
Mhm.
um does that mean I can't be annoyed about it? No. It means that like there's a level of responsibility that I have. I'm like, okay, yeah, like I came into this, like I'm taking that power back. um can we just laugh for a second of like your higher self? Like what was she on? What she's
Like
like,
why this?
religion. Let's do the religious ones. And I find that a lot of human beings who are wanting to access their gifts um, have to work through um, the control, just the control of like you
Yeah.
cannot.
Yeah, especially when like I talked to fellow sensitive people who had like really, and I don't personally believe in imagination because I'm like, we're channeling, it's real. Imagination kind of makes this like little fake blanket over it, like as if it's not. But I talked to so many sensitive people and they were like, I had such active imaginations or this active experience as a child, and then like it slowly like goes away as we fight to be accepted by the people around us. Um, so yeah,
So you've been psychic your whole life.
I've been psychic my whole life. Yeah. And I think a lot of that too was the experience I had growing up. I had childhood cancer and was in that realm of like having other friends with childhood cancer and losing friends and people from cancer. So the mediumship kind of, I've always been psychic in the way of seeing energies, experiencing energies, but the mediumship I feel like has come on stronger and stronger over time with like every death initiation that I've had, because I've become more and more neutral to death as like I've experienced death in my life. So
Can
yeah.
relate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, let's hear
Not to the
about your
cancer.
experience.
Not to the cancer. Oh, that must have been really, really hard for you. I really can't even imagine. And I'm so happy you're here on this planet.
Me too,
Really,
love.
really, really am. Thank God.
I'm glad I'm here with you and that you're
Thank
here
God.
with me. And that we're no longer alone doing this. We're doing it together.
I know. There's such a magic in being able to have a community and connection and support, and for me, like mentors who know more than me. Instead of
Yes.
going at it alone. But we can talk. Let me tune into like, to be honest, don't know. I don't quite remember a lot of my childhood because there was a lot of trauma. I feel that I had to shut down quite early. I do have a memory of being 3 years old and using my healing energy on my brother because my parents were going through a divorce and I was trying to heal him and calm his nervous system at 3. I remember it very, very vividly. But my mom was an alcoholic, so I had to shut down my feelings, and there was a lot of enmeshment there. So my gifts really, really didn't turn on until she really suddenly and tragically passed. And in those moments, I had my mediumship initiation, and also like every psychic gift is coming on. It's all happening at once. And this was about 4 years ago. And I was like, am I crazy? Like, I'm losing it. Obviously, going through grief, you already think you're just losing everything. And then I'm like stripping back these layers and layers and layers of pain to like find the me underneath all of that. And you know, I'm getting a lot of judgment thrown at me, like, oh, this is just the way she's coping and like healing with her mom's death. I'm like, no, this is who I've been, and maybe who I was before. I didn't really I've always been scared. Like, I didn't really have experiences as a child. I'd be like, no, I shut that out. I was like, absolutely not. Terrified. No. But now, you know, coming into owning it, I think I came out as a psychic medium. I think it's been 3 years now. It'll be 3 years coming up in September. And that to me felt like the most real moment of my life. And a lot of people, so I had a lot of support. So I'm really, really grateful for that. My mom was really spiritual and open. So I like always had like an openness there. But I have definitely faced a lot of rejection because people just don't understand, and they don't want to be curious about it. And that makes a lot of sense because of the way that it's portrayed collectively. When we think about being a medium, the first thing I think that comes to people's minds is like, I see dead people. And that brings up the feeling or the sensation of fear. And that's not really what it's been like for me as a medium. And then I think the next thing that comes up is maybe control. Like, do I have control? Fear and control kind of play this little game together. It's real fun.
They're in a nice little dance.
And so it's like, does this person have control of their gift? Or am I going to be hurt by this gift? And the answer is no. If the person if the person has training, and you know, the spiritual path is not for everyone.
True that.
Not every soul incarnating on this planet is here to be a psychic medium in this lifetime. People are here to experience other things. Some people want to research and like be in medicine. Some people want to like be an artist. Everyone has their own path. Some people want to deeply explore religion. There's no judgment when it comes to what people are doing.
Right.
In this life, my soul, for some reason, which I know, wanted to embrace every sensitivity possible and help
turn
others.
it all on.
Just turn it on, baby. Like go through the trauma and then heal through it, and then like show others how to do it in a really grounded way. And so, yeah, that's kind of been the experience for me and my awakening. It's been really quite like a rushed 4 years. And I know we've talked about this before. For you, it's happened over time, but you've just been activated. Like,
I was activated, and then like a definite like dissociation, like numbing, like who am I? How do I be accepted? And then going through now I'm numb and accepted, and I hate it, and I am not myself. So okay, how do I get back to being myself? And then the flood of gifts coming back on. But it sounds like for you, you're just like just like thrown right into it all at once. And that sounds so challenging. And I see you with that, like having to respond so quickly to the influx of information and stimulus and like gifts of experience that you've had. Like that's, woo.
I'm like trying not to cry because thanks for seeing me. Yeah, it was a pretty intense 4-year initiation. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about helping other sensitive people, is like I went through that by myself for the most part.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that didn't feel like worthy or like open to having somebody mentor me because I had been hurt so many times by mentorship. And now I'm in a place where I have this connection and community and friends and guidance and support, and it's coming from a really grounded and loving place. So I'm happy. I'm happy. And
yes,
that's what you and I are like here to create for other sensitive beings, is like, you don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to numb out. Like there's ways that you can like be empowered by your sensitivity.
Absolutely. And support yourself and receive support from other people who've either experienced it or are experiencing it at the same time as you. So yeah.
So let's talk about our next topic, which is the clairs. Like what does being psychic mean? Like, what is that? What does that mean? Like literally, what does it mean?
It means having extra sensory perception. And I also just want to say the only reason why it's considered extra is because we don't have the tools to perceive it or to have empirical evidence that it exists. And our current collective and society has placed the weight on like what is real, on what can be physically experienced. So,
or measured by science.
And it's just because the science hasn't gotten there yet, in my personal belief.
We're getting close.
We're getting close though.
We're getting so close. And that's what's going to be really cool and probably super validating for a lot of people, is that science is catching up with energy. Because I believe everything is energy, and I'm so here for it. So yeah, being psychic is having extra sensory perception. And the typical ways that that's described is through the clairs. So we've got clairvoyance, which is like the main one, to see. It's like the third eye. That's everyone's like bread and butter. Like, do you see? And my answer is yes. I'm in a clairvoyant training program right now to just deepen. And so then we've got clairaudience, a personal favorite.
Just where you can hear voices, sounds, words. Sometimes it'll come in my own voice, but in a different dialect. And sometimes it'll come into somebody else's voice.
Yeah. For me too, when my clair when my clairaudience was turning on, it was a lot of ringing in the ears. So a lot of
Oh.
ringing in the ears. And then I would hear, yeah, be like, tell them this. It would always be this like voice of like, tell them this, like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my mediumship gifts came through clairaudience first.
Mm-hmm.
Because seeing, to me, I shut that down. I was like, I was like, no. I was like, oh, man. I had to work up some courage to clear my pictures of fear when it comes to seeing, because seeing is not scary. But there was a lot of fear because of a lot of horror films that I watched, or a lot of like projections of what it means to be a psychic. And I'm here to just be like, seeing is actually not scary.
Yeah. And I just also want to say, like, having these gifts, like when you're experiencing them in that way, like I feel safe in my system and my body when I experience that. But it's interesting. Mine's the exact opposite. Like I was so down for seeing, and I'm very voyant, like I'm very visual and will see images and things. And Audient took some time to be okay with, because I had the programming around, she's hearing voices in her head. Like, but then I like sat and got like to interview the voices a little bit and be like, who are you? But yeah, so what's the next one? Clairsentience.
Clairsentience. And so this is a big one, guys. Like this is a big one, because a lot of human beings resonate with being empathic, which is essentially clairsentience. And this is clear feeling. I think a lot of human beings in female bodies tend to be extremely clairsentient. And so they'll resonate with kind of being empathic. And when I think of like being empathic, like what I see is like spongy. It's kind of like not having control of your feeling center, which can be over feeling or not feeling anything at all. Or oscillating between the two. So clairsentience to me is usually the first place I start with my clients, is like, oh, wow, you're feeling or you're not feeling. I work in the emotional body a lot. And so I'm always just trying to like tune into like, how can we kind of balance so you're not feeling other people's emotions, sensations, experiences, growth periods, all the things in your space. So I love clairsentience, because when I finally heard of the word clairsentience, I was like, oh, I'm not empathic. I'm actually extremely psychic in this center, and it's turned all the way up, and I don't need to live my life with this much. Like, it's over on. And the reason for me that it was over on is because living in fight or flight for so long as a child, I had to be so attuned to everyone's feelings around me to make sure that I was safe. And this is kind of a thing that I see in other people's spaces, is like, oh, I'm empathic. And what that usually means is like, I had to be hyper vigilant and sensing like all of the emotional disturbance around me so I could protect myself. And so what we do when people work with us one-on-one is help them to come into safety so they don't have to have that all the way up all the time. Right. It's so debilitating.
Oh yeah. That's an uncomfy place to be in. And I love what you said about like it being, for me too, like being identified as an empath, or identifying myself as an empath. I felt like no control over it. I was like, oh, I just go in a place and I feel everyone's emotions, and that's just my lot in life. It's a curse and a gift sometimes, I guess. But now I'm like, oh no, I'm clairsentient, and now I get to know like that's my gift, and I get to have control over it, or I get to have power over how I'm using that gift and how that gift is experienced through my body. So I think that's, I really love that you made that differentiation, the empath versus clairsentience.
Love it. Okay, next one we've got, I'm going to say this wrong, so clairalience.
Clairalience, my least favorite.
Your most favorite, please.
My most and least favorite clairalience is psychic smell. So
you were in the kitchen the other day, and this is okay, like just like a little note of like what it's like living with another
day in the
psychic.
Life.
A day in the life of Kimber Kline. She's in the kitchen, and I hear her, and she goes, "Is that a real life smell? Is that an earth smell?
Or
a spirit smell?
or a spirit smell. Yeah, no. And then literally I came up the stairs, I think it was yesterday, and I was like, key lime pie? Like, do you smell key lime pie? And I'm like, no. And then I walk in my room, I'm like, it's just in this one spot that smells like key lime pie. I'm like, definitely spirit smell. But yeah, it's like my least favorite because it confuses the crap out of me. Like, I'll walk around and I'll get a smell, and I'm half blind in my earth body. So smell is really important for me to be able to connect with what's going on. So when I get a smell that's not in earth, I'm like, what is this? What do I do with this information? But yeah, so if you're smelling some weird things that nobody else can smell, Claire aliens.
A lot of times when people are opening up to their intuitive gifts, they'll get, especially if they're using mediumship channels, they'll get like the smell of the perfume of the person, or like, I'll smell cigarettes all the time. I'm like, stop. This is not my favorite.
Common like American experience. Everyone's got a connection to cigarettes. Yeah.
I'm realizing that I definitely have this gift because I'll be able to smell someone's like health constitution. Yeah. So if I don't like the way that they smell, it's probably a no for me. But
oh yeah,
I'll be able to like kind of suss out. I'm like, ooh, something's off here. I'm like sensitive to smell, as well. But you are like beyond.
Well, it's interesting because I've talked to people who don't consider themselves psychics in any way. Like somebody in my family can smell when someone's sick. Like we'll know, like what you just said, kind of like we'll know when somebody's about to get sick or is sick based on how they smell. And I thought it was the weirdest thing for so long, and now I'm like, oh, you're clear aliens.
You're just psychic. And I think there's a lot of charge around the word being like psychic, and I think that's because we have this polarity between religion and then like, you know, persecution of people who had psychic abilities, right? So yeah, reclaiming the title psychic was really, really important for me, especially for the women in my line who've had all these abilities and weren't able to be like, oh yeah, this is a gift, versus like, oh, like fear, you know? So I'm really, really happy to be able to be out and not persecuted for owning my experience. Good times.
I mean, it's incredible. You're literally in psychic school.
I know. It's
the coolest thing.
I think it's like one of the coolest things ever is like, I literally go to psychic school. Like we call it in school psychic kindergarten. And so it's like, or we call it Hogwarts. So I just
of course
go over to my class and it's a good vibe. And this is clairvoyant training to just deepen that center for me. So super, super excited. So moving on from psychic school, which we'll talk more about, I'm sure, throughout this journey because it's very present in my life. We have Claire
Gustins,
which is what?
Psychic taste.
Fuck, I do have psychic taste too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, how's that for you? It's not very active for me, probably because I'm like, that's a no.
Most of these clairs come out only when I'm in psychic space. And so just to explain to people, I've created a space for me that I kind of turn on when I'm doing this, because before, you know, it's a lot of information. We want to make sure that we're like going into it like with some safety, some container or some boundaries. So yeah, I've definitely tasted things during readings.
I love that you mentioned though, like creating that separate space. So it's not just, because I think that's important too, as far as like what a day in the life looks like, is we're not just like walking around with the desire, at least, of receiving all of this extra information when we're just like trying to go to the grocery store and do like human things. Like that's not the goal, is to get at least not my goal, at least to
Oh,
get all of
absolutely
this
not.
extra information that can be overwhelming. And I think that's part of like the training and the honing of the gifts, is learning how to create safe space for yourself, so you're not just receiving all this information all the time. But some come in stronger, like the key lime pie as I walk into my room.
I wonder what that was. We're gonna have to tune into that later.
Yeah, we'll get to.
Yeah, I think it's funny because at the beginning, of course, when you open up to all of this, you're like, yes, let me validate this. And every person, I'm going to read all the energy. I'm going to do all the things. I'm so fucking. And then you realize that burns you out really, really quickly because you lose yourself under all of that energy. 100%. And then you're like, oh, wait, I have to do things differently. And so that journey happened for me last year when I was getting separated from my husband. Is like, everyone's stuff and projections and blah, blah, blah was on me, and I was losing my sense of space myself. So I'm a advocate for owning your space, because if you're going to be sensitive, I want you to be sensitive for you, not for everyone else. You don't need to be like getting information about someone's grandma who passed over at the grocery store. Like, you know, those are for people who are, you know, coming into like this consensual exchange with you, versus just reading everything and everyone, or like people DMing you being like, I have messages for you. That to me, red flag. Like there's boundaries when it comes to having these gifts. And I think that kind of, I don't believe that there's a hierarchy, but I think as you open more and more, you're almost trusted with like a higher sense of responsibility for yourself and for others. And that's discernment. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what has been happening for me, especially in the past 6 months. It's like discernment, consent. When should I be using this? When should I not? And to be honest, my healing energy, my psychic energy is for me. It's for me. My information.
And for your clients.
And for my clients who are in energy exchange with me. Mm-hmm. And it feels quite good to not be overloaded with this obligation to read the world, to share my uniqueness with the world. It's like, okay, great. Like the people who are for me and are needing support and getting unstuck will come to me. And
absolutely.
I don't need to be like, I used to though. Like I used to be like, oh my God, I know their mom died. Like I can feel her. Like I'm gonna go tell them. And it's like, no.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. For me, it was a big, like, I have this gift and I've always had this gift. It felt like a life calling. So it felt like my responsibility. Like it was my job to be the savior in whatever space I was in, or be the person who had to like help people heal things. And then I was like, it got exhausting and overwhelming and very draining. So it's like, it's not worth sacrificing my body for, like,
right? Like
absolutely not.
I came to Earth to have fun.
Absolutely.
On what do we call the planet, Kimber? It's like a what do you call it?
What do I call it? Which one?
The one where it's like a hostile planet.
I mean, Earth is pretty hostile in the way of like humans still kill each other. And so that's kind of hostile.
You're like, it's a level 5 hostile.
It's a level 4 hostile planet.
I came to have fun at a level 4 hostile planet zone. So
exactly.
What the fuck am I doing?
Okay, what's the last clear?
Okay, no, we gotta have a laugh because we've been talking about some pretty intense things, and I also want to say for anyone listening, like, it's okay to be where you're at. There's no judgment. I'm just laughing at myself because I used to think my gifts were for literally everyone else. And then I was
like, except me. Everyone else except me.
And I was like, what the fuck?
And now I'm like, oh, no. My gifts are for healing this specific body and this specific iteration, and exploring my gifts is the evolution my soul chose to be on for this particular life. And if somebody wants to come in and experience those gifts, I gotta get paid for some sort of exchange for it, because like I've worked really hard on myself to be able to experience these gifts, and that's what's fair. Everything is an exchange is also what I've learned recently.
Yeah. I mean, I spent years training my channel to be able to hold a neutral vibration, to not project my own human self onto people who I'm reading for. And that takes a lot of skill, time, and
Mhm.
all of the things. And so, yeah, like if somebody wants to, yeah, I'm just using my healing energy for me, because as I heal me, I heal my ancestral line. I heal everyone around me because I'm holding a regulated nervous system. There's like, I don't have to do much, but just focus on myself. Like,
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
hard enough though.
to be honest, like I think my main focus for so many years was like trying to hold space and heal my family, and just being like run through the ringer and trying to do that. And then as soon as I took my healing energy back for myself, all of my relationships have just started to heal naturally, like spontaneous. I'm like, oh, this is so spontaneous. This is so coincidental. I'm like, no, it's not. It's because I'm healing myself and they're responding to that new vibration. And our relationships are healing because of it. So
Yeah, most of us as healers, I like to like I see it like little like pins. We like try to hold someone from their growth because we're afraid that if they experience pain, somehow we'll be disconnected from them. There's like this fear. And so we keep people from experiencing their growth by giving them our healing energy to like plug their pain point instead of allowing them to experience it and process it and release it.
yeah.
And so, yeah, similarly, when my mom died, all of my healing energy, because there was such a codependence there, all of my healing energy came back to me. And that's why I was able to start to own my space and who I am as a sensitive being, is because I was just completely just being drained by this, this relationship. And I love my mom. Don't get me wrong, I'd do it again. I'd do it again for you, Lori. But let's not come back for a while and enjoy the astral. Um, cancel clear. I don't think I want to do that again, actually.
Yeah, I'm like,
But
do you actually?
I think I did well. I'm proud of myself. But
Proud of you too.
yeah, like calling back my healing energy from that relationship, which was like my deepest, most enmeshed pain frequency, was the way that I was awakened.
Mm-hmm.
Just through tragedy and trauma, just the way that my soul loves it. Scorpio moon. Like, yes.
The suffering.
That's suffering. And then I'm like, now I'm at a point where I'm like, let's not suffer. Let's not do that anymore. It's not a fun time. The growth is hot, but like, anyway.
The growth is hot.
After the fact.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important to mention too. It's just like, just because you and I have had these really difficult experiences, and that as a result of that, like we came more into our gifts, like doesn't mean that you have to experience trauma or pain in that way to embrace your sensitivity. It's just what our souls just wanted hardcore mode. Like we just wanted to suffer
reading the
bit.
energetics around it too, like it has a lot to do with the ancestral line. Like in these moments, I was healing a lot of the energy around being psychic and reclamation and all of these things in those moments. And so, yeah, it has a lot to do with like epigenetics and like the energetics of the actual physical body that we kind of have to go through in order to heal it up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always new levels of it. Like I still process pain. It's just I'm able, like we were talking about this the other day, I'm able to hold both, and I'm able to hold the trauma, the pain, all of the ancestral shit, and also be in joy. So it's kind of both, and it's not like, oh, I've let go of it all. It's like, I cried about my mom in the bathtub 3 days ago, okay? And it felt cathartic because it was mine. Anyway, tangent. Okay. So the last, and to be honest, my most favorite, is claircognizance. This is clear knowing. This is the crown chakra. Like I know it. It just is. I don't know how I got this information. It just is. This is probably my most dominant clair. I'm like, I love it. Clearly I'm deeply attached.
Okay. I feel like it's the most, in my experience, at least triggering clair for a lot of people, because it's like, I don't have any proof. There's no evidence. There's nothing I can show for you or to like convince you why it's true, but it's true. And I know it's true. And then when it happens, it happens. And then I'm like, see, it was true.
Oh, and we like to call that, it's interesting because like I'll have claircognizance hits, and I know you will too, Kimberly. It's just a no. And we're like, let's actually go and see why. And
Yeah.
we call this spiritual edging. We call
Or
this
like
intuitive edging.
intuitive edging. Yeah.
I know that this is a no. I'm going to do it anyway, so that, because I know the situation is not volatile, though probably it is.
Yeah.
We're using discernment.
It's safe enough. It's safe enough.
It's safe enough to where I know I can handle myself. But yeah, I like to call that spiritual edging. But that's how you like, I think, learn to own the claircognizance, is like practicing it every day. It's like, ooh, don't do that. Like, well, that's clairaudience. If you don't do that. But like claircognizance comes in and just like, I know not to do that.
Yeah, it's like, it's quiet. It's just a little like, I know.
Is it quiet?
Is that thunder?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's claircognizance. It's here.
But yeah, intuitive edging, I feel like it's funny because it's like, okay, I know this is a no, but I'm going to do it anyway, just so I can prove to myself and my subconscious and my belief system that this knowing is actually correct. So in the future, when it comes to like more important things that are a little bit more like the stakes are higher, I can trust myself more deeply. So yeah, we've been intuitively edging on things. I'm like, I know it's a no. I'm gonna play it out and see maybe why it's a no, and see how long it takes for the no to be blatant. Always been safe, always used discernment with that, but that's been really helpful because I feel like claircognizance is where a lot of us get gaslit
Yeah,
the most,
definitely.
maybe some of the most, because
definitely.
It's in direct contradiction to the narrative of like, you have to have facts to back up your belief systems. You have to have all of these things to have a formed opinion or whatever. Unconscious energy.
Hello. Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm, hold on. Pause for unconscious energy. So let's talk about what it's like for us to be psychic every day. I know we've kind of touched on it, but what is it like for you living in this world, having the sensitivities? What is that like?
Before having nervous system regulation practices or after?
Let's talk about before your nervous system regulated.
Before, I felt like I was a product of my environment. Like I would go somewhere, and if the vibes weren't right, or if the people weren't like someone I was really comfortable with and felt safe with, like I would get really anxious and nervous because I didn't know how any situation or any environment would affect me. And I didn't have the structure in place to make sure I felt safe and supported. So I could go somewhere like the grocery store and just trying to get I used the grocery, this is the second time I used the grocery store. Grocery stores are very impactful because there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of different people.
You're moving a lot.
A lot of different moods. And then I would go to the grocery store and then come home and have a massive headache or feel sick to my stomach or just feel grumpy for the rest of the evening and not really have a reason why. Like nothing really happened profoundly that I could say, hey, this is why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. I would just be really easily influenced by the situations, the people, and the environments I was in. So that looked like dissociation or like fight or flight.
I have a reason. I know exactly why. It's because you're a Pisces stellium. You're a moody fish, girl.
Just literally everything.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
I am a Pisces stellium. It's
Did you
true.
use that? Like, were you like, oh, I'm just a Pisces. Like, I can't control
I didn't
it.
start using that until I moved to Asheville, which was
Oh,
in
okay.
January.
Fantastic.
No, my friends would literally just call me a sponge. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're just a sponge. Like I would go to events with my family, and my partner at the time was like, I would say like, I hate it when you go see your family because you come back and you are so grumpy, you are so irritable, you are like this and this, and it takes you like, it took me multiple days to like unravel or peel back like the stuff I would take on from being in the situation. So yeah, that's before nervous system regulation and like energetic sovereignty.
How long does it take you now to shift? Because it's not like the energies around you are shifting. It's you being able to have awareness of your ability to shift that within yourself. So how long does that take you to shift now?
uh, when it's in my awareness, mere minutes. And I think it takes probably the tops I've been experiencing is a couple hours for me to have it in my awareness. I know, like, went from like 48 hours to like 2. I'm like, heck yeah.
There was a time that I was spun out for probably a month.
Oh yeah.
So
same.
Or maybe even many years. I don't know. But I'm so proud of you that it's takes you mere minutes, and I've seen it. I see it in the everyday, and I'm like,
I mean, you've had a lot of impact on that. Specifically, one of the like most supportive things with that space is me recognizing when it was somebody else's energy and not my own. Is you told me if it's your pain, it will feel good to process. It'll feel relieving and cathartic to process. If it's somebody else's pain, feels like crap, feels debilitating, it's unclear, like I can't put a reason to it, it's just like in my space. And since you said that to me, I was like, okay, does this feel good and like somewhat easeful and cathartic to process? No, absolutely not. It's not my shit. Get out of my space. So thank you so much for that.
It's because I took so many people's emotions on, and I did the emotional labor for like, I mean, I was primarily clear, sentient. Like that was like just the feeling centers on all the time. I just did so much emotional heavy lifting for people that I have this like ability to be like, I'm gonna go process, but like this is not mine. Like this isn't it.
Yeah.
So I just send it back. I'm like, oh wow, okay. Like, because I don't want to keep somebody from their growth. That's not my responsibility. Yeah. So I send it back and I'm like, okay, like they are an adult. So if they're an adult, this is very different. If it's a child, it's very, very different. I'm talking about adults here. Adults, for the most part, have sovereignty over self, maybe. Mm-hmm. And they have, that's their soul's journey. We step away.
Yeah.
We create separation.
Or at least we invite them back
in
sovereignty by not saying like, I'll take this for you.
I'll do this work for you. And then you don't learn the lesson. And then it keeps coming up. And then you're stuck in this pattern and you can't get out because you keep going to women, you keep going to healers, you like just take it for you. And you're not actually processing it so your body can release it.
Yeah. And also I want to acknowledge like how scary that can be as a sensitive being, especially in a female body in relationship, like claiming like and sending that back, like having the fear around like what value am I bringing to this relationship if I'm not doing the emotional labor. At least that's something that I've experienced, is like, is my partner or these people I'm in a relationship going to love me and value me if I'm not taking their pain away from them, or if I'm not processing their emotions for them?
I still come against that one.
Yeah.
Like to this day is like, okay, I'll just step in and like, what's my value? And is my value being a healer in this way, or like doing emotional labor because I'm so good at it? And it's just like, I'm like, nope, I'm gonna call that healing energy. So that's definitely a growth period that I'm in for sure. Definitely. I think the last thing that I want to talk about is kind of the idea and the pictures around psychics, or like what is it being to be psychic, to be sensitive to energy, to have access to these clairs, versus like what is it like to, in your words, be a future caster?
Yes, a future casters.
A future caster.
I have some shade around future casters.
Hold on, we're about to throw some shade. I'm gonna put up a judgment rose.
So the rose is just there to collect the energy.
Future casters. Tell me what a future caster is, Kimber. What is it?
A future caster is somebody who uses their awareness of potential timelines. And so, like, just a real quick side of that, like being aware of the energy, you can be aware of potential timelines that can take place. And there are millions of timelines that could take place in response to a single moment, millions of them. And they're all impacted by free will and a person's choices and their sovereignty. And so a future caster is somebody who's tuning into the potential timelines and telling somebody what timeline is going to take place for that person. And the reason why I'm not a fan is because, first of all, it's taking somebody's sovereignty and authority away by saying, as a psychic, I have the sight and I can see what timelines are available and which ones are going to happen. This is the one that's going to happen, instead of giving somebody the tools and empowerment to choose for themselves, like we talked about. And it's also, I think, can be very dangerous and potentially damaging because of how our brains work in self-fulfilling prophecies, because we've given our sovereignty away and our power away to this psychic and have said, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen in my life? And them telling us, it instills this like neural pathway and this belief that that's what's going to happen. And it makes it very difficult to choose differently or to create a timeline separate from that, because we've given our power away to somebody else and have basically consented to that timeline that they said is going to take place. So I'm not a fan of future casters because it takes us out of our sovereignty and is not great. And I know that you have an experience with a future caster, and I would love to hear about it.
First of all, meet Winston. He is having his own journey on this wall, which there's stairs behind me, so if he falls,
he's good.
Okay, he's the cat. Yeah, okay, let's go into the future caster story. I'm ready. Okay. I'm bitter. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. I can talk about this. I'm pretty neutral to it now. When I started my journey, I was obsessed with psychics. I was like, fuck yeah. Because what I didn't realize at the time is that I was reading the energy of how they were doing it so that I could model it instead of just getting a training program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, let me just go.
I feel that.
Yeah. Like, that. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's really fun. It's fun until it's not fun. And so you're like tuning in every 3 days to like a tarot card reader. And you're like, oh, I'm just gonna, cause you're matching that energy. You're matching it. And so I had a reader recommended to me by somebody I trusted. And the reader was really old school. I want to say he was like in his like 60s. He like sent me the reading on a CD. Okay. Like a CD. I didn't have a CD drive.
I'm like, how did you play your reading?
I also had to mail him a check. Like,
this is adorable.
It was cute. He was like, and I was like, you trust me to just mail you this check? And I was like, of course I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not going to fuck with psychics. Anyway, so I have this reading. I'm obviously, he was using tarot cards because like I could hear him. It was over the phone. And by the way, it's totally okay if you have a reading over the phone. It's actually better sometimes, because if people are using clairvoyance and like all this stuff, it's actually easier. I've done a lot of readings over the phone or Zoom. So just like if you're like curious, sometimes it's better for us to be in our own space via Zoom and read you through the energy versus like being in the same room with you and like matching that energy at the time. Not that it's more difficult if you have training, but like it's just over the phone is chill. All of my energy work is over the internet. Anyway, so we were having this reading and I was like writing it all down on my journal. I was like so fucking open and like, please someone help me. And he had told me, he was like, I see a death in your family. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm over here like, at the time, a person in my family was really, really struggling with mental health. And my mom had just, died from mental health. And so I was like, that was a big fear for me. And so he pulled this card and said, yeah, a male figure in your life is going to die. And I was like, that spiraled me out for weeks. It created anxiety, created stress in my life. It took me out of a space to where, for me, like, it was at the time I really needed to disconnect from people, and it made me feel guilty that I was like, oh, I have to reach out to them, like give them my healing energy or they're not going to live. And it was this whole journey. So yeah, if someone tells you that someone's going to die, first of all, source would never give that information. I don't believe that like source would give that information.
I don't either, because it's not supportive to an evolution.
And if you were to, I'm not saying that you can't receive that information. I'm saying for a reader to not be able to filter that and not share, not okay. It's not okay. There's certain boundaries that should not be crossed when it comes to this work, because as a reader, your job is not to create anxiety or stress. It's to create healing and a safe place for them to process, to bring them back to their sovereignty, to help them get unstuck, to help them move forward, to help them connect and process their grief, like whatever it is. Like, so yeah, I'm pretty discerning of readers who haven't gone through this process or this initiation. I've definitely been initiated in it, where it's like, you don't share certain things. They're just not meant to be shared. For me, one of those boundaries is sharing about babies. I just won't do it. Like, I can see them, but I'm just not gonna. It's just why.
Yeah,
it creates unnecessary anxiety. No.
Yeah, and I think that it's a lot about like the consensual exchange and what's agreed upon before the reading. But I think as an empowerment to like anybody who's receiving these readings or psychic support, like if you don't feel empowered, if you don't feel good in your body, if you don't feel safe after receiving that reading, I would take a step back and examine it and really discern whether or not that was meant for you. And that if that's supportive for you, because psychic support should feel empowering. It should make you feel, in my opinion, it should make you feel like I have a clear knowing of where I want to go and what's right for me and what's going to be for my highest and best.
100%. And you have those answers within. I do a really cool meditation called the Higher Self Connection session. And it's a mild hypnosis. And we take you to be able to start creating connection within yourself to like get those answers. And we'll do this in the metamorphosis container that we have coming up.
Yes.
Help our clients get connected to their own answers. But for me, a red flag is any healer trying to take you away from your own authority or claiming that their vision is the right way for you. And just not having the discernment, a reader not having the discernment of what to share and like oversharing. It's very odd to me. So just not doing that in 2022.
No,
I apologize if I've done that to anyone. I'm so sorry.
It's all about learning. It's all about moving forward and doing the best we can as we move forward. But yeah, I think as a collective in general, like we're all eager to take our power back. We all want to have this sense of sovereignty and agency over our gifts, over our space, over where we're going with our life. And psychics can be really supportive in that way. And I think that what I'm really excited about in Metamorphosis is that we're like teaching sensitive beings on like how to do that for themselves. So yeah. Lots of excitement for that continues. That program's going to be so exciting.
It's coming soon. If you want to get on the wait list, go to alexandriakenyon.com/metamorphosis. Just like get on our wait list, and then we'll send you an email when we're ready.
Yeah. It'll also be linked in the show notes.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. My show note queen. She makes all the show notes. She makes them look so good. So yeah, I guess final notes, being a psychic medium is basically like being a normal person if you have the tools and can regulate your nervous system.
Yeah, I would definitely invite anybody who feels like they're really sensitive and can get overwhelmed or related to any of the experiences we talked about to reach out to us and see if that's something that we could provide support with, because it's not something that I think we are made to do by ourselves at all. So get support, get community. Yeah, no.
Like, I did it for 2 years by myself. It was not a vibe.
10 out of 10, do not recommend.
10 out of 10. Absolutely not. Well, thank you, Kimberly, for this beautiful discussion. I love being a psychic medium with you, and I'll see you for the next episode.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Connection, the podcast. We want to remind you that any statements or opinions shared on this podcast are from our own experiences or that of our guests, and we invite you to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. If you love our show and want to connect with us further, please reach out through our website or Instagram linked in the show notes. We're excited to announce our group program Metamorphosis will be launching in the fall. To learn more, please go to alexandriakenyon.com/metamorphosis. See you next time.